Hey, deserving listener, Love is Blind, Season 7. Let's see what comes flying out of my face as I watch.
Need to work on to mature and be able to get married, right? Because it's a big commitment. Like, it's no fucking joke.
You've never really had to think about anybody else, right? And now you do. I want you to be like an active listener, an active partner. I don't want to have to always have to be the first one to start a deep conversation or initiate sex. I think it's all about
Okay, so they're having a conversation about their relationship, and he is saying that he is trying to catch up to her maturity. I think maybe one of the main things within that maturity concept for them is that he has said, and the parents said, that he's never really been in a relationship before. And a part of maturity, I suppose, is learning how to navigate a relationship, how to pay attention to other people. We're also learning that she would like him to initiate more. She feels like she initiates conversations about important things, maybe discussing conflicts, and also initiates sex. This all fits into the column of an hypothesis that he is nice, but he's nice not because he's involved, but because he's trying not to lose her, or he's keeping himself at a distance, and he's not really in touch with himself, or he's not involving himself. And, maybe he just has a lower libido or whatever, and he's avoidant of conflict. But there's just a lot of ticks in the column that he is not really present. In an earlier video, I was talking about how for some people that are nice and not bothersome to people around them, they're actually not in the room. They're dissociative in the general sense, not in the pathological, clinical sense, but they are distancing themselves from the situation. They're not really involved. They don't know their needs. They don't feel safe to feel their emotions.
Initiative. When we were in the pods and you were talking about how much I read, and you were like, I would love to read. Have you read?
I haven't had a chance to.
Okay.
When I have free time, maybe last night instead of going to watch the game, I could have read. But,
Yeah. Priorities, right?
I'm not a fan of that bit. So she's saying in the pods, you said you were going to read, or you like to read, or you were planning on reading. And then she asks him, have you read recently? And he's like, oh, I haven't, but maybe instead of watching the game the other day, I could have read. And then she says priorities. What's it to her? What does it matter if he reads or watches the game? It's all just leisurely activity. Yeah. I'm not a fan of this. I would hope that he would say, well, when I'm chilling and relaxing, I just, I would like to read more, but I guess when it comes down to it, especially on last Sunday, I would much rather watch the game. And also, I would kind of appreciate it if you didn't monitor my leisure time, because it's my leisure time. Or he could say, so are you saying that you want me to change my priorities to read more? Is that what you want? And why do you want that?
They're little things, right? Like in Mexico, I couldn't figure out the lights. You got pissed when I couldn't figure out the 50 fucking lights. But that wasn't a one-time thing, right? Hey, Hannah, you know where this...
Okay, so he's entering the room by telling her that I think is saying he doesn't appreciate being treated unfairly about little things that he hasn't figured out yet or doesn't know. And he's saying, 50 fucking lights. So I'm guessing it's one of those. Stacey and I went on a road trip recently, which meant that we were staying in different places all the time, and we were staying at an Airbnb, and we could not figure out the light switches. They were not intuitively placed. There were several light switches that I don't think did anything. And whenever we wanted to turn on and off the lights, it was basically just trial and error. And it usually took 7 tries before, okay, that's that light. And so, maybe it was just something like that. And he's saying that she got angry, not okay, not okay.
the disposal is? Mm-hmm. No, you didn't say I was stupid, but like, you're like, come on, Nick, like, you should know this. Sometimes I feel like, you do think I'm maybe sometimes like a level below you.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. I think they both actually ascribe to that to some extent. He has said so consciously that she is there to teach him. His parents also said the same thing, that I don't think I showed this clip, but the dad was saying that when he married his mom, that not when the dad married his mom, but when the dad married his mom, that he had a lot of growing to do and he had a lot of learning to do. And so maybe for Nick, he has learned. It's interesting, the parallels, right? And we saw a little bit of Hannah's parents, how the mom was potentially more pointed in her statements, and the dad was along for the ride, kind of. It was real brief. And we see a similar dynamic, or differently displayed, but a similar rhetoric or narrative around the man needs to catch up to the woman or something like that. And so it's a template that they are playing out. But this is a good conversation. Let's see where this goes.
You know what I mean? I just want to be treated as an equal.
I think you get treated like an equal when you start contributing like an equal.
Yikes. It depends on what she means by that. It's hard to imagine any justification for what she just said. Unless she means it in a particular narrow way, like, I will stop pointing out things to you when you stop needing to have things pointed out, and those things that are being pointed out are understandable. Again, it's hard to imagine that, but what I'm guessing is being communicated is, well, I don't know what's being communicated. It's possible that she just needs to be superior, and that is what's being communicated. I am superior to you, and that's just the way that it is. And no matter how much you contribute, whether she knows this or not, she will never treat him like an equal, because she needs to treat him like an inferior person because of her own traumas and her own personality problems. Or she's saying, I want you, by equal, what she means is, I will treat you well. I will be more in a good mood around you when I start feeling like you're pulling your own weight, or when I start feeling like you're actually invested in this relationship or something. I don't know. But that is quite a statement. I will treat you like an equal when you start Yeah. Yikes.
I think sometimes I'm hard on you to say mean things, like, you feel like I think that you're like below me, you're not as mature as me, or like I think you're stupid or dumb or whatever. And I don't mean to make you feel like that.
Okay. But you literally just did that. You said, I will treat you like an equal when you contribute like an equal, which means you are not my equal, which means you are below me. So you just said that. They edited it, but it was within this conversation. Yikes. Look, if she has a complaint, she can have a complaint. She could say, I would like it if you did this, or I would like it if you prioritize this in your future, or you contributed more financially, or I don't know, whatever. She could have a request, she could have a complaint, but the meta narrative that he is inferior and she is superior is not necessary, it's not accurate, it's not helpful. It's a narrative that I think she brings to the scenario, and she fits the scenario to the narrative.
But sometimes I feel like at 28 years old, you should know how to do things, so it just frustrates me. I'm not here to just...
Yeah, this is how she has done this in the past. She will pseudo-apologize. Listen to my whole deep dive on apologies and forgiveness. I go into detail on non-apologies, and this is one version of a non-apology where you start off the first half, it sounds like a legit apology, and it did. She said, I'm sorry. Sometimes I can't remember what she said, but I'll be critical unfairly. But if you weren't such a stupid person, then I wouldn't get so frustrated. Okay, that's a you're not really apologizing. Apologizing is, I did something wrong, and I am sorry, and I impacted you negatively, and I will endeavor to not do that again. End of story. Not, but I only did it because, she's done that every single time. She did that in Mexico. She's done that other times as well. So I don't think she is really sorry. I think she wants to be sorry, or she wants to come across like she's sorry, but she's not actually. If she were actually sorry, then it would look different. She would, I think, exhibit more sorrow, right? That's what being sorry is. It's like, oh my God, I feel sorrow. I feel sadness that I have hurt you in this way. We're not seeing that. And also, you wouldn't have a but at the end. You would just say, I did this wrong thing. I have an explanation for it, but it's not an excuse. It's just context. I do it because I feel frustrated. That's not on you. That's on me. I shouldn't get that frustrated. I interpret things the wrong way, and I go after you, and that's not okay. Now, again, if she has a complaint or a request that at 28, I would like you, when we get married, or if we get married, I want you to actually start progressing on some of these issues that impact me, right? If you don't know how to do chores because your parents have always done your chores for you, that impacts me. If you can't pay your bills, that impacts me. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about I'm superior to you. You don't have to do these things, but I would like these things to happen. That's okay. But why is it equality? Why is he lesser than because of these details? This is more ticks in the column that she has traumas around what she was saying, how she was cut off by her parents at 18. I don't know the story there, obviously, but I think this is either this is the way she was being treated, or this is what she had to resort to in order to grow up fast. And she had to sacrifice her youth, whether it's rational or not that it happened. And I've seen this before. I had a client years and years ago who had a teenage kid, and my client was the mom, and she was really, really hard, not abusive, but was kind of like this. It's just like with her 15-year-old kid. It's like, you're 15, you should have this figured out by now, And when I looked into the history, the mom, I can't remember the exact circumstances, but she lived on her own from the age of 15 on because of drug addiction in her parents, or something happened. And she had to grow up really fast herself, and obviously resented it and was very angry. And she had to forego some of her childhood even before that, but particularly post 15. A 15-year-old should be allowed to be a 15-year-old. An 18-year-old should be allowed to be an 18-year-old. Some responsibilities, but not all the responsibilities, at least in Seattle mainstream culture. Because in other cultures, by 18, you do need to have all the abilities of a full adult because of the circumstances. But anyway, so that resentment, that anger, and how do you get through those years? Well, you develop this shortcut in your superego that clamps down on your 15-year-old self. Your 15-year-old self just wants to be 15 and call your friends and watch YouTube or something. But then your superego is like, if you don't get your shit together, you are going to suffer. Bad things are going to happen. You'll be, on the street, or someone will steal everything or whatever, And so there's this need to have a very angry, shaming part of yourself that's just like, get your shit together. And there's a 15-year-old version of yourself like, why is this happening to me? This is unfair. And so there's a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of issues around this. Then when you are interfacing, you're relating to someone who has allowed themselves to be less responsible, it can trigger that superego of like, you need to be more, because they have this unresolved issue, right? And they resent that other people were allowed those luxuries because they were not allowed those luxuries, right? So with my client who had the kid, up until the kid was 15, my client was very conscious of making sure that she raised her kid in a much different way than the way she was raised, and she did really well. But then at 15, something just kind of snapped in her, because that was the year that when she was 15, you know, she was mistreated 0 to 15, but then at 15, that's when she really had to become an adult, and that's when things really changed for her. And although intellectually she understood, my kid is just 15, I should lay off, it was almost impossible for her to let go of that. Even with the awareness that we developed in therapy, she couldn't change her attitude and her emotions and her reactivity to her kid. That took much longer. She had to heal a lot from the pain and the resentment that she had naturally from when she was 15 through 20. And it took a long time. And so it just has that kind of look to it, the way that she talks to him.
I feel like at 28 years old, you should know how to do things, so it just frustrates me. I'm not here to just like fuck around and date someone. I'm here to like actually have like a person for the rest of my life, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
And the fact that he just doesn't really fight back or defend himself or say anything, I don't know what that means. The two main hypotheses I have is that he's not really invested in the relationship, or he is frequently, because, you know, prior to even being with Hannah, he doesn't have access to his feelings, and or he distances himself from the outside world because he doesn't feel safe for one reason or another. And so when she is this way, he retreats into a part of his mind that protects himself and denies and just glosses over. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.